My parents kicked me out for choosing work over babysitting and lied about it to the whole family. But when I exposed them, their lies burned down around them, and now they're begging me to come back because their replacement finally quit. I'm Brielle, 23, and 3 months ago I thought I had a loving family. My parents, Gareth and Felicia, always seemed supportive. My younger siblings, twins Callan and Brinley, were 14. Everything seemed normal until I got offered the job opportunity of a lifetime. I'd been working part-time at a marketing firm while finishing my degree. When they offered me a full-time position with actual career potential, I was over the moon. The catch? It required some evening hours and occasional weekend work. Nothing crazy, but definitely more than my previous schedule. That's when my parents sat me down for what they called a family meeting. Brielle, we need to talk about your priorities, my mom said, her voice already carrying that disapproving tone I'd grown to hate. Your siblings need supervision, my dad added. You've always been so good with them. I should have seen it coming. For years, I'd been the built-in babysitter. Need to run errands? Brielle will watch the twins. Date night? Brielle's got it covered. Want to visit friends? Well, Brielle doesn't have a social life anyway. I can still help out sometimes, I said carefully. But this job is really important for my future. My mom's face hardened. Family comes first, Brielle. We raised you better than this. Mom, they're 14. They don't need a babysitter anymore. They need guidance, my dad said, and you're being selfish. The conversation went downhill from there. They accused me of abandoning my family responsibilities. I tried to explain that this was my chance to build a career, to become independent. They weren't hearing it. If you take this job, you're choosing strangers over your own family, my mom said, tears in her eyes that I now realize were completely fake. That's not fair and you know it. Life isn't fair, my dad snapped. But family loyalty isn't negotiable. I took the job anyway. How could I not? It was everything I'd worked for in college. Good pay, benefits, room for advancement. My dream company wanted me, and I wasn't going to throw that away to be a permanent babysitter for teenagers. The first few weeks were tense but manageable. I'd come home from work to find my parents giving me the cold shoulder. The twins seemed confused by the sudden family drama. I tried to maintain normal relationships with everyone, but my parents were making it impossible. Then came the ultimatum. You have a choice to make, my dad said one evening. Quit that job and focus on your family responsibilities, or find somewhere else to live. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I realized they were serious. You're kicking me out because I won't quit my job to babysit? We're giving you the chance to make the right choice, my mom said. The twins are 14. They can take care of themselves for a few hours. That's not the point, my dad said. The point is, you've shown us where your priorities lie. I had 3 days to decide. 3 days to choose between my future and my family's unreasonable demands. I chose my future. Moving out was harder than I expected. Not just logistically, but emotionally. My parents acted like I was betraying them in the worst possible way. They barely spoke to me as I packed. The twins were crying, confused about why their big sister was leaving. I'm not abandoning you, I told Callan and Brinley. I'll still see you all the time. I just need to live somewhere else right now. But even as I said it, I could see doubt in their eyes. My parents had been working on them, probably filling their heads with stories about how selfish I was being. I found a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The rent ate up a chunk of my salary, but I was determined to make it work. That's when the lies started. I found out through my cousin Neve, who called me a week after I moved out. I heard about your breakdown, she said. I'm so sorry you're going through this. My what? Your parents told everyone you've been struggling with your mental health. They said you moved out because you needed space to figure things out. My blood ran cold. That's not what happened at all. They didn't kick you out. They gave me an ultimatum. Quit my job to babysit the twins or leave. I chose to keep my job. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a long moment. Brielle, that's not what they're telling people. Over the next few days, I started getting calls and texts from family members, all expressing concern for my mental health crisis that apparently never happened, all offering support for the breakdown I wasn't having. My Aunt Cordelia called to say she was proud of me for getting help. My Uncle Thorne offered to pay for therapy. My grandmother sent a care package with a note about how depression runs in families and I shouldn't be ashamed. Each conversation was like a punch to the gut. Not only had my parents kicked me out for choosing my career over their convenience, but they'd lied to everyone about why. They'd painted me as mentally unstable rather than admit they'd made unreasonable demands. I tried calling my parents to confront them, but they wouldn't take my calls. When I showed up at the house, they wouldn't let me in. You need to focus on getting better, my mom said through the barely opened door. When you're ready to apologize and come home, we'll talk. Apologize for what? Having a job? You know what you did. My dad's voice came from behind her. They closed the door in my face. For 3 months, I lived with this lie hanging over my head. Family gatherings I wasn't invited to. Relatives tiptoeing around me like I might shatter at any moment. The twins barely responding to my texts, probably convinced their big sister had abandoned them for no good reason. But I threw myself into my work. My boss, Meredith, noticed my dedication and started giving me bigger projects. Within 2 months, I got a promotion and a raise. My coworkers became friends. My life was actually pretty good, apart from the family drama. Then last week, everything changed. My cousin Neve called again, but this time she sounded different. Frustrated. Brielle, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay, are your parents paying someone to watch Callan and Brinley? That was not what I expected her to ask. What do you mean? I was at the grocery store yesterday and overheard your mom talking to Mrs. Henderson from down the street. She was complaining about how expensive it is to hire someone to watch the twins after school and on weekends. She sounded really stressed about the money. My stomach dropped. If they were paying someone to watch the twins, that meant they'd been lying about needing me specifically. They just wanted free babysitting. Did she say anything else? She mentioned that the woman they hired wants to quit. Something about the twins being difficult and your parents being demanding. I sat with this information for days, feeling angry and vindicated at the same time. They'd kicked me out and lied about it, all to avoid paying for childcare. They'd damaged my relationships with extended family, made me question my own choices, and let me carry the weight of their lies for months. That's when I decided to do something about it. I started with a simple plan. I'd document everything and present the truth to my family. No more letting my parents control the narrative. First, I saved every text message exchange with my parents from before I moved out. The ones where they clearly stated their ultimatum about quitting my job. The ones where they prioritized me being available for babysitting over my career. Then I reached out to Neve and asked her to write down exactly what my parents had told different family members about why I moved out. The mental health crisis story. The need for space, all of it. I also contacted a few other relatives who'd expressed concern about my supposed breakdown, asking them to share what they'd been told. The stories were consistent. I was struggling mentally and had chosen to move out rather than get help. But I wanted more than just my word against theirs. I needed concrete proof of their lies. That's when I remembered something. My parents are constantly posting on social media, especially my mom. She documents everything: family dinners, the twins' activities, their weekend adventures. If they were paying someone to watch Callan and Brinley, there might be evidence online. I created a fake social media account and started looking through their posts from the past 3 months. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Multiple posts showing the twins with a woman I didn't recognize. Posts tagged with locations during times when my parents were clearly elsewhere. Captions thanking our amazing babysitter Joanna for being so good with the kids. But the smoking gun came in a post my mom had shared in a local community group, asking for recommendations for reliable, affordable childcare for teenagers. The post was dated just 2 weeks after I'd moved out. In the comments, she'd explained that their previous arrangement had fallen through, and they desperately needed someone who could handle after-school and weekend supervision for twin 14-year-olds who were going through a difficult phase. Several people had responded with suggestions, and my mom had replied to one comment saying, "It's so hard to find good help these days. Our last babysitter quit suddenly and left us scrambling." Their last babysitter, that's what I was to them. Not their daughter making a responsible career choice, but hired help who'd quit suddenly. I screenshot everything. The social media posts, the community group conversation, the texts from before I moved out, all of it. Then I started making calls. I called every family member who'd expressed concern about my mental health. I started with the ones I was closest to, like Neve and my Uncle Thorne. "I need to show you something," I told each of them, about why I really moved out. The conversations were eye-opening. As I shared screenshots and explained what had actually happened, I watched my family members' understanding shift in real time. "Wait," my Uncle Thorne said during our call, "so they kicked you out for taking a job? And then told everyone you were having a breakdown? That's exactly what happened." Jesus, Brielle, I had no idea. I've been worried sick about you for months. The same pattern repeated with each call. Shock, then anger at being lied to, then guilt for believing the lies without question. But I saved the best for last. My grandmother had always been the family matriarch. Everyone respected her opinion, and she had no patience for dishonesty. If I could get her on my side, the rest of the family would follow. I drove to her house last Saturday afternoon, armed with printed screenshots and a timeline of events. "Grandma Sable, I need to talk to you about something important." She invited me in, already looking concerned. "Of course, sweetheart. I've been so worried about you. How are you feeling?" "That's actually what I need to talk to you about. I'm not having a mental health crisis. I never was." I laid everything out for her. The job opportunity, my parents' ultimatum, the lies they'd told the family, the evidence I'd found of them hiring and struggling to keep a babysitter. My grandmother is 78 years old, but her mind is sharp as ever. She examined each screenshot carefully, asking clarifying questions and cross-referencing details. When I finished explaining, she was quiet for a long moment. "So your parents kicked you out for taking a good job, then lied to the family about why?" "Yes." "And they've been letting us all worry about your mental health while they knew the truth?" "Yes." Her face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, then anger. "Those damn fools," she said, and I'd rarely heard my grandmother curse. "How dare they lie to this family? How dare they make us worry about you for no reason? I just wanted everyone to know the truth." "The truth." She stood up, suddenly looking every bit the formidable woman who'd raised 6 children and buried 2 husbands. "Oh, the truth is going to come out all right. I'm calling a family meeting." "Grandma, you don't have to." "I absolutely do have to. No grandchild of mine is going to be slandered by their own parents. Not while I'm breathing." That's how I found myself at my grandmother's house the next evening, surrounded by nearly 20 family members, waiting for my parents to arrive. I'd spent the day nervous about the confrontation, but also relieved. Finally, the truth was going to come out. No more living under the shadow of my parents' lies. My parents walked in looking confused, but not particularly concerned. They probably thought this was some kind of intervention for my supposed mental health issues. "Thank you all for coming," my grandmother began. "We're here because I've learned some disturbing information about the situation with Brielle." My parents exchanged glances. My mom's face was already starting to show worry. "As you all know, Gareth and Felicia told us that Brielle moved out because she was struggling with her mental health and needed space. We've all been concerned about her for months." Murmurs of agreement around the room. Several relatives nodded sympathetically in my direction. However, my grandmother continued, her voice taking on a steelier tone. It turns out that story was completely false. The room went quiet. My parents both went pale. The truth is that Gareth and Felicia kicked Brielle out of their home because she refused to quit her job to babysit the twins for free. You could have heard a pin drop. They gave their own daughter an ultimatum. Quit your job or leave. When she chose her career, they kicked her out and then lied to all of us about why. My mom found her voice first. We never said she had to quit her job. Really? My grandmother held up a printed screenshot. Because I have text messages here that say otherwise. Would you like me to read them? My dad stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We don't have to sit here and be accused. Sit down, my grandmother said, and her voice carried the authority of decades. My dad sat. She began reading the text messages aloud, the ultimatum, the accusations of selfishness, the demands that I prioritize family over career. With each message, more family members started looking at my parents with expressions ranging from confusion to disgust. But that's not even the worst part, my grandmother continued. Not only did they lie about why Brielle left, but they've been paying someone else to do the exact job they demanded she quit her career for. She held up the screenshots of my mom's social media posts. Here's Felicia posting about their amazing babysitter, Joanna. Here's her asking for childcare recommendations in community groups. Here's her complaining about how expensive it is to hire help. My Uncle Thorne shook his head. So let me get this straight. You kicked out your daughter for not being your free babysitter, then hired someone else to do the same job? It's not that simple, my mom said weakly. It sounds pretty simple to me, my Aunt Cordelia said. You lied to all of us. We've been worried sick about Brielle for months. We've been sending care packages and offering to pay for therapy, my uncle added. All because you couldn't tell the truth. The room erupted in angry voices. Family members who'd been sympathetic to my parents' situation were now furious at being deceived. Questions flew from every direction. Why would you lie about this? How could you make us worry for no reason? What kind of parents kick out their child for taking a good job? My parents tried to defend themselves, but their explanations only made things worse. We thought she was making a mistake, my mom said. The twins needed her. The twins needed supervision, my grandmother corrected, which you clearly found elsewhere. It's different when it's family, my dad protested. You mean it's different when it's free, my cousin Neve said sharply. The confrontation went on for over an hour. My parents' lies unraveled completely as family members shared what they'd been told versus what actually happened. The story changed depending on who they'd talked to, but the core lie remained the same. I was mentally unstable and had chosen to leave. By the end of the evening, my parents had lost the sympathy and support of virtually every family member present. People who'd been offering them help and understanding now saw them as manipulative liars who'd damaged their own daughter's reputation to save face. You owe Brielle a public apology, my grandmother said as the meeting wound down, and you owe this family an explanation for why you thought it was acceptable to lie to us for months. My parents left without saying another word to me, but the damage was done. The truth was out there now, spreading through the family network faster than their original lies had. I went home that night feeling lighter than I had in months. Finally, people knew what really happened. Finally, I could stop carrying the weight of their deception. But I had no idea that was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my mom. When I finally answered, she was crying. Brielle, please, we need to talk. About what? You had 3 months to talk to me. Joanna quit. She quit yesterday after your grandmother's meeting. Someone told her what we'd said about you, and she said she didn't want to work for people who would lie about their own daughter. I felt a moment of satisfaction, followed immediately by suspicion. And? The twins need supervision. Your father and I both work full-time. We can't just leave them alone. They're 14, Mom. You said they needed guidance, not constant supervision. Please, she said, and I could hear the desperation in her voice. We'll pay you. We'll apologize publicly. Whatever you want. What I want is for you to leave me alone. I hung up, but the calls kept coming. Not just from my mom, but from my dad too. Voice messages ranging from pleading to angry to pleading again. The twins started texting me as well. Not angry messages, but confused ones. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time now, Callan texted. They keep asking when you're coming home. Are you really not sick? Brinley asked in a separate message. Grandma Sable said they lied about that. I felt terrible for my siblings. They'd been caught in the middle of this mess, and now they were dealing with the fallout of our parents' lies. But I wasn't going to sacrifice my job and my independence to fix the problems my parents had created. The calls and messages continued for days. My parents were getting increasingly desperate as they realized the consequences of their actions. We can't afford to hire another babysitter right now, my mom admitted in one voicemail. Joanna was expensive and she quit without notice. We need help. In another message, my dad actually tried to guilt trip me. Your siblings are asking why their big sister doesn't want to be part of the family anymore. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth, I muttered to my empty apartment. But the most telling call came from my mom 3 days later. I talked to your boss, she said, and my blood went cold. You what? I called your work. I told them you have a family emergency and need to take time off to help your siblings. I was so angry I could barely speak. You called my workplace without my permission? I told them it was an emergency. Did you tell them the emergency was that your babysitter quit? I told them we needed you at home. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Mom, if you ever contact my workplace again without my permission, I will file a restraining order against you. You wouldn't do that to your own family. You kicked me out and lied about it for 3 months. Try me. She hung up, but I immediately called my boss to explain the situation. Meredith was understanding, but also concerned. Your mother sounded very upset, she said. She mentioned something about you needing to care for your siblings full-time. That's not happening. My parents are trying to manipulate me into quitting my job to be their free babysitter. I'm not going anywhere. Good, Meredith said firmly. You're doing excellent work here, and I'd hate to lose you to family manipulation. The fact that my boss could see exactly what my parents were trying to do just reinforced how wrong their behavior was. That weekend, the twins showed up at my apartment. I was surprised to see them. They'd never visited before, and they looked upset. Mom and Dad are acting crazy, Callan said as soon as I let them in. They keep talking about how you ruined everything and you need to come home. But Grandma Sable told us what really happened, Brinley added, about the job and the babysitter and the lying. I made them hot chocolate, and we sat on my small couch to talk. Are you mad at us? Brinley asked quietly. Of course not. You didn't do anything wrong. Mom said you chose work over family, Callan said. But that's not true, is it? What do you think? I think Mom and Dad didn't want to pay for a babysitter, he said bluntly. And when you wouldn't do it for free, they got mad. My 14-year-old brother had figured out in 3 months what my parents had been lying about to the entire family. We don't even need a babysitter, Brinley said. We're not babies. We can take care of ourselves after school. That's what I tried to tell them. So why did they hire Joanna? Because they wanted someone to blame when things went wrong. Someone to make sure you did your homework and chores and stayed out of trouble. They didn't want to be responsible for managing your time. The twins exchanged glances. That's stupid, Callan said. Yeah, it is. They stayed for a few hours, and I realized how much I'd missed them. They were smart, funny, and much more capable than our parents gave them credit for. They didn't need constant supervision. They needed parents who trusted them and held them accountable. As they were getting ready to leave, Brinley hugged me tightly. I wish you could come home, she said. I know, sweetheart. But I can't give up my job and my life to fix Mom and Dad's problems. We understand, Callan said. Grandma Sable explained it to us. She said sometimes parents make bad choices and kids have to make good ones. After they left, I felt both proud of my siblings and angry at my parents all over again. The twins were mature enough to understand the situation, but my parents were still trying to manipulate everyone involved. The next week brought a new development. My cousin Neve called with an update from the family grapevine. Your parents are telling people they're willing to take you back despite your betrayal at the family meeting, she said. They're acting like they're being generous by forgiving you. Are you kidding me? Your mom posted on Facebook about how family forgiveness is more important than pride. She's making it sound like you should be grateful they're giving you another chance. I was beyond angry. Even after being exposed as liars, they were still trying to control the narrative, still trying to make me look like the bad guy who should be thankful for their forgiveness. That post was the last straw. I'd been content to let the truth speak for itself, but my parents clearly weren't going to stop lying and manipulating. I screenshot my mom's Facebook post about forgiveness and family, then crafted my own response. But instead of posting it as a comment where she could delete it, I made my own post and tagged every family member who'd been at the meeting. I want to address something publicly since my parents are continuing to spread misinformation about our situation. 3 months ago, they gave me an ultimatum. Quit my job to babysit my teenage siblings for free or move out. I chose my career, and they chose to kick me out. Then they lied to our entire family, claiming I'd moved out due to mental health issues. Meanwhile, they hired and paid someone else to do the exact job they demanded I quit my career for. When their babysitter quit and they couldn't afford another one, they started calling me begging to come back. I said no. Now they're acting like they're being generous by forgiving me for exposing their lies. I don't need their forgiveness. I need them to stop lying about me and leave me alone. I attached screenshots of the original ultimatum texts, the social media posts about hiring babysitters, and the timeline of their lies to the family. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Family members started commenting and sharing their own experiences with my parents' version of events. Several relatives admitted they'd been suspicious of the mental health story but hadn't wanted to pry. My grandmother commented simply, "The truth has a way of coming out eventually." Within hours, my mom was calling me in tears. "How could you embarrass us like this publicly? How could you lie about me publicly for 3 months? That's different. We were trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourselves. And you're still doing it. Everyone thinks we're terrible parents now. Maybe you should have thought of that before you became terrible parents." She hung up, but the damage was done. My Facebook post had been shared dozens of times, reaching far beyond our immediate family. Friends, co-workers, and distant relatives were all seeing the truth about what had happened. My dad called later that evening, his voice cold and angry. "You've destroyed this family," he said. "No, Dad. You destroyed this family when you kicked me out for having a career. We gave you a choice. You gave me an ultimatum. There's a difference, and you chose wrong. I chose my future over your convenience. That was the right choice. Don't come crawling back when you realize what you've lost." "I won't," I said, and hung up. But even as I felt satisfied with finally setting the record straight, I also felt sad. This was my family, and they'd chosen pride and manipulation over honesty and reconciliation. The next few days brought an interesting development. Without the twins constantly texting me updates, I started hearing about my parents' situation through other family members. Apparently, they were struggling more than they'd let on, not just with childcare, but financially. My grandmother let slip that they'd been borrowing money from relatives for months, claiming it was for emergency expenses. Now we're wondering if those emergencies were just the cost of hiring babysitters, my Aunt Cordelia said during a family call. My Uncle Thorne added another piece to the puzzle. "Your dad asked me for a loan last month, said they had unexpected medical bills, but now I'm thinking it was probably just the cost of replacing you." It turned out my parents had been living beyond their means for a while, and my free babysitting had been helping them stay afloat financially. When they had to start paying for childcare, it pushed them over the edge. That's when the real begging started. My mom showed up at my apartment unannounced one evening, looking haggard and desperate. "Please," she said when I opened the door. "We need to talk. We've talked. You made your choice 3 months ago. We made a mistake. We're sorry. Are you sorry for kicking me out, or sorry that your plan backfired?" She was quiet for a moment. Both. At least she was being honest now. It doesn't matter, I said. I'm not giving up my job and my independence to fix your problems. What if we didn't ask you to quit? What if you just helped out a few evenings a week? And when those few evenings become every evening, when weekend emergencies start happening, when you start guilt-tripping me for having plans? She couldn't answer because we both knew that's exactly what would happen. Your siblings miss you, she tried. They can visit me here anytime. They don't need me to move back home for that. It's not the same. No, it's not. It's better. They get to see me because they want to, not because I'm stuck babysitting them. She left in tears, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt relieved that I'd stood my ground. The final piece of this drama came 2 weeks later, when Callan called me with an update. Mom and Dad are getting a divorce, he said matter-of-factly. I was shocked. What? When did this happen? They've been fighting constantly since Joanna quit. Dad says Mom wasted money on babysitters when they had family who could help for free. Mom says Dad is cheap and manipulative. Yesterday, Dad moved into Grandpa Rex's basement. My parents' marriage had been a casualty of their own lies and manipulation. The stress of their deception, the financial pressure of paying for childcare they couldn't afford, and the family backlash from their exposed lies had apparently pushed them over the edge. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, we're fine. Actually, it's quieter now, and Mom stopped trying to hire babysitters. She said we're old enough to watch ourselves after school, which is what I said 3 months ago. Yeah, you were right about everything. A month later, my dad called me, not to apologize or ask for forgiveness, but to blame me for the divorce. This is all your fault, he said. If you'd just come home and helped with your siblings, none of this would have happened. If you'd treated me with respect and been honest with the family, none of this would have happened. We're your parents. We deserved your help. You deserved my respect, which you threw away when you kicked me out and lied about it. Don't expect us to be there when you need help someday. I haven't expected that for months, Dad. I'm doing just fine on my own, and I was. My job was going great. I'd gotten another promotion and a significant raise. My apartment had become a real home, decorated with things I'd chosen and paid for myself. I had friends at work and hobbies I enjoyed. Most importantly, I had a relationship with my siblings that was built on mutual respect rather than forced obligation. They visited me regularly, and we talked about their lives, their interests, their problems. I was still their big sister, but now I was also their friend. The twins started calling me for advice about things they'd never discussed with our parents: school problems, friend drama, questions about growing up. Our relationship was stronger than it had ever been when I lived at home. 6 months after the whole mess started, I got an unexpected call from my mom. I want to apologize, she said, and for the first time in months, she sounded genuine. Okay, not because I want something from you, but because I realize how badly we handled everything. What changed your mind? Therapy? And the divorce? And watching how happy Callan and Brinley are when they come back from visiting you. She paused, and I could hear her taking a deep breath. You were right. About the job, about the twins being old enough to take care of themselves, about us trying to use you as free labor instead of supporting your career. I appreciate you saying that. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why you made the choices you did. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start. My mom and I began talking occasionally, carefully rebuilding some level of relationship. My dad remained stubbornly angry and convinced that everyone else was wrong, so our relationship stayed severed. A year later, I was offered a management position at my company. The promotion came with a significant salary increase and the opportunity to lead a team of my own. As I signed the contract, I thought about how close I'd come to giving all of this up to be a free babysitter. The twins, now 15, were thriving. They'd joined school clubs, made new friends, and learned to manage their own schedules and responsibilities. They were proving every day that they hadn't needed a babysitter. They'd needed parents who trusted them to grow up. My relationship with the extended family had fully recovered. If anything, people respected me more for standing up for myself and exposing the lies. Several relatives had shared their own stories of being manipulated by family members who expected free labor disguised as family obligations. At Thanksgiving dinner at my grandmother's house, I sat with my cousins and siblings, laughing about something stupid from our childhood. My mom was there too, sitting quietly at the other end of the table. My dad wasn't invited and probably wouldn't have come anyway. After dinner, my grandmother pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, she said. It takes courage to choose your own path when family tries to hold you back. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, I admitted. Harsh? She raised an eyebrow. They kicked you out and lied about it for months. They tried to sabotage your career and manipulate your siblings. If anything, you were too kind. I just wanted them to be honest. Honesty isn't something you can force on people, but you can refuse to enable their lies, which is exactly what you did. As I drove home that night, I reflected on everything that had happened. My parents had tried to control my life by making unreasonable demands and lying when I refused to comply. But their lies had eventually collapsed under the weight of the truth. I'd lost the family I thought I had, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that I could stand up for myself and create my own path. I'd learned that family loyalty doesn't mean accepting manipulation and abuse. And I discovered that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones willing to hurt you the most to get what they want. My phone buzzed with a text from Brinley. Thanks for coming to dinner today. Dad called earlier asking if you were there. I told him yes, and that you seemed really happy. I smiled and texted back. I am happy. I hope you are too. We are. Love you, big sister. Love you too. And that was the truth. Despite everything that had happened, despite the lies and manipulation and family drama, I was happy. I'd chosen my future over their convenience, and it had been the right choice. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is refuse to enable their worst behavior. Sometimes love means setting boundaries and sticking to them, even when it hurts. My parents had kicked me out for choosing work over babysitting and lied about it to the whole family. But when I exposed them, their lies burned down around them, and now they were dealing with the consequences of their own actions. I was no longer their built-in babysitter, their scapegoat, or their victim. I was just Brielle, living my own life on my own terms. And that was exactly where I wanted to be.